Okay, welcome back everyone. So today's lecture we're going to get into another mechanism, and this is called sexual selection. And in this video I'm going to attempt to show some other examples in video form. Hopefully that we can do it in such a way that they won't strike down this video for copyright infringement. So I won't play the sounds, and we'll see how it goes. If you want to hear see the whole video and listen to the narrator and whatnot, you can always just look it up on YouTube yourself. It's there for free. But I'll try to show a little bit of it in my recording as well. So let's get into sexual selection. So we just got finished talking about natural selection. And Darwin's theory of natural selection was able to explain the differences between species, being that there were certain traits that would confer upon individuals increased fitness. And that we called those traits adaptations. It would allow them to survive and reproduce in their environments better than the organisms that did not have those traits. But natural selection does not explain differences within a species, specifically the differences that we see between males and females. And just if you've never thought about this, you often do see very many differences structurally between the males and the females of the same species. And so Darwin had this idea of something called sexual selection. Here's a quote. Sexual selection depends not on a struggle for existence, but on a struggle between the males for possession of the females. The result is not death to the unsuccessful competitor, but few or no offspring. When the males and females of any animal have the same general habits, but differ in structure, color, ornament, such differences have been mainly caused by what he called sexual selection. And that was On the Origin of Species, one of his most important works. So look at these sex differences that you'll see. This is the sexual dichotomy where the males of a species have certain traits that females lack. This is the same species of bird. Here's the male with this really exciting, unbelievable plumage and coloring, and the female is more drab and doesn't have the amazing like headpiece, I guess you would call it. This is frigate bird, and the males have this huge red pouch. Obviously, male lions have manes, whereas female lions do not. And these dancing spiders have these really colorful flaps that they dance around with to get the attention of females. All of these things are, in essence, in order to get attention from the females. So Darwin proposes this new mechanism, and he says these secondary sex characteristics that develop in males evolved because females preferred to mate with individuals that had those features. So sexual selection affects an individual's ability to mate and obviously then produce offspring, which is basically the reason for organisms existing. And it leads to the evolution of dramatic traits that often appear maladaptive in terms of survival, but persist because they give their owners greater reproductive success. So just going back here for a second, you can't really explain to me that this would be an adaptation for survival, right? This, if you were trying to hide, you'd rather much look like the female, not have this giant red pouch, not have this multicolored flap. There's no need to have this long mane when you could just be more streamlined. These traits are not things that would, be explained easily by natural selection. They don't appear to be make you less available to predators or any of these things. Be able to catch your food easier. If anything, they're saying, "Hey, I'm over here. Look at me." And so, sexual selection is able to explain why these traits would exist. And sexual selection can occur in two ways: through male-to-male competition for mates and through female selection of mates. So it's either two males fighting or a male trying to put on a display for a female to select him. And so this is that sexual dichotomy or the sexual dimorphism where, like I said, males and females of the same species differ in some way. That could be coloration, it could be behavior, it could be vocalizations, like we'll see in frogs and birds. It could be ornamentation, right here with the proboscis, this nose, compared to the female, or these huge, incredible feathers, coloration again, or size. Size is a big one, often where you see the males be quite smaller in some cases than females, like you see in these diamondback terrapins. And so just it's really interesting to talk about. I think sexual selection is just really neat. And so here's another example. Here are the male fiddler crabs with these big, long claws. And here are the females that don't have it. Now, you can't look at this big claw and think, well, that would be an adaptation. I guess you might be, thinking, oh, it's good for eating, but no, they eat small things out of the sand, and so he uses the small claw to do that, whereas the female has two small claws. And so this is really only for showing off, and also maybe clubbing away other males, but this is to show off to the female, look at how big my claw is. And so just another example. So the first thing we'll talk about is male-to-male competition. And it's also called intrasexual because it's intra, in the same sex competition, when two males of the same species compete one-on-one for the opportunity to mate with a female, either one female or many females, depending on the species. Larger males tend to win the male-to-male conflicts due to just their sheer strength, their ability to ward off other males from taking their females, and basically, the bigger guy is going to win. And then here are some examples of intrasexual competition. These often fights will not end well for one of these individuals. They're often very brutal, and obviously, when they occur, they usually occur between an older male and a new rival younger male who is attempting to take control over what is called a harem, which is just a number of sexually reproductive available females, or just it could be one individual female, but usually it's for control of territory that has many females. So here's our first video example, and this is about the narwhal. The narwhal, this is not about male-to-male competition. This is just about ornamentation, a really interesting ornamentation. So narwhals have these really long horns, basically, is what they look like, but they're actually teeth, like a huge canine tooth that sticks out in front of their heads from outside of their mouths, and they're extremely sensitive. I mean, imagine if your tooth grew out of your head for about like 3 meters, 9 feet long. These were actually the origin of the unicorn. Like, what would you call that? A story or a legend, as where sailors would obviously kill narwhals, cut their tusks off, and then sell them and say they were unicorn horns. But these guys are really interesting. Obviously, we actually do not know much about them at all because of where they live, and the Arctic is very, very hard to get to study. And so what it's showing here is that these narwhals, in the summer, they wait for the ice to split so that they can swim into shallower areas which are protected and have their food, and just really interesting organisms. Now the females don't have tusks, but sometimes they do, which is interesting, because usually when you see something like this, it's always that the male has, think of deer, male have the rack and females do not. But in this case, sometimes females can have the tusk. And so, but for the most part, it's a male, an ornamentation. So this is really interesting. These guys, kind of something like out of a sci-fi movie in a way, like a whale with a unicorn tusk. Very interesting. So this is called Our Planet Narwhals clip, if you want to listen to what David Attenborough has to say. And why wouldn't you? Because David Attenborough is awesome. The next one is an example of male-to-male competition between these two rams, bighorn rams. And this is an example where a younger bull will want to challenge an older bull for control of females. And the way that the younger male does this is he has to be the challenger. And basically what he does, you can see here, is these licks, and he kicks him in order just to piss him off, really. And then they're going to exchange in headbutting, what can go on for hours at a time, to where they bash their head in at 35 kilometers per hour dozens and dozens of times. They hit each other so hard it would immediately kill you as a human. They have 2 layers of skull to protect their brains from this. And so what he's doing here, this is the older male, is called the long downward stretch, and it basically is the beginning of this fight. And here they go, boom. And so it's just incredible. You think about all like an NFL hit, which causes all these brain injuries, and they're just doing it over and over again until one of them will submit, and it's usually going to be the bigger, stronger one, which either can be the old bull if he's still feeling good and healthy, or eventually will be the young bull, just because of the passage of time. And that's just how it works in this species. Really interesting. The sound, I really suggest watching this one just to hear the sound of these rams crashing their heads together over and over again. So obviously, male-to-male competition here. Thinking about it, there's probably not a whole lot of brain in there to protect anyway, but I'm just joking. But yeah, and you can see that it ends. It's going to end poorly for one of them. So that was the rams example. Now, so we talked about ornamentation, showed the video, and intrasexual competition, showed the video. Now let's talk about intersexual competition, where the males are working to attract the females. So this is, in my opinion, even more interesting because it talks about female choice. And the female choice occurs when the females get to choose a male based on a particular trait, like its feather colors, the performance of a mating dance, the building of an elaborate structure, and those are just 3 examples, but singing a song, looking a specific way. In some cases, male-to-male competition and female choice combine in the mating process. And in each of these cases, the traits selected for, such as fighting ability, feather color, feather length, become enhanced in the males. And so here's the video of these bird of paradise. It's a very rare bird, but we got video of this mating ritual. And so here comes the male, and he is ready to do his thing. And basically what he needs to show to the female is that he is, very healthy. He would be a great father, I guess you could say that, or sperm donor. And the way that he does that is by performing this very specific dance and this very specific call that only, obviously, a female of his species is looking for. And see, she's like very interested. She flies down, and he is going to perform this dance. Really incredible. I mean, just myself, I'm mesmerized by that. And you could see that this plumage, this bright colored plumage with the eye spots and the neck spot that's very reflective, and then he's able to pick up this black cape, they're calling it. That's not something, and you could see here's we're trying to get it on here, produce another clutch of eggs. That is not something that would be very good at avoiding predation. So very, very interesting. What sexual selection, that's why sexual selection can explain why an organism would look like that, and why they wouldn't all just look like brown females. Really, really cool. All right. So why does this happen? Well, there's a few different hypotheses The first one is the sexy sun hypothesis. Is that not an interesting name? And it basically says that the most important offspring a female can have, not for herself, okay? And when we talk about this, it's very hard to talk about humans, because certainly humans do have sexual dimorphism, but we also have very, very enhanced brains. And so I would never say that the most important offspring in humans are the males. I'm not trying to get at that. Obviously, we're a step above in terms of intelligence. But basically, this hypothesis says that for other organisms, the most important offspring that a female can have are the males that have the desired traits. And the reason for that is if they have the desired traits, other females will be attracted to those desired traits, and that moves the entire species along in this positive feedback loop where the males look better and better and better, and the females are more and more attracted to it. And so, in a way, it does make sense, right? If the entire reason that an organism exists is to survive and reproduce, then the most important thing is to be very, very good looking, and then produce offspring that are even better good looking, and so on. The next example, and the one that I think has a lot of weight. All of these have a lot of weight. I'm obviously not the be all end all, but I like the idea of the parasite load hypothesis. And what that says is that if a male can invest the energy that he gets from eating and stuff, if he could invest that energy that it requires to produce that sexy trait, which is whatever trait you want to talk about, if he can look like that bright, make that bright blue spot with that black cape, it means that he's probably not fighting any infections. He's probably really healthy, and also, obviously he's reached sexual maturity, and he's been able to avoid predators. And so I like that one a lot because if you ever work with certainly birds, I worked with birds for my master's program. If you see a bird that is sickly, especially male birds that have these bright colors, they're often much darker. They're, like a cardinal, for example, when they're bright red, that is, it's just an indication that they're very healthy. Whereas sicker male cardinals will be a lot darker red and not as bright and vibrant. So I think that one is probably the case. These are probably all part of the overall story. And the next one is this very interesting one, and it's very, very high, high level thinking, and it explains something that is, pretty hard to prove. But this pre-existing sensory bias, where females will have this pre-existing, unexplainable sensory bias, and basically what that's saying is, for some reason, these females just happen to like a way that this specific male looks like, and this one's much harder for me to really get at and explain. It's a lot more high level thinking, and I tend to look at the first two and think, well, those are more fully explained, and the pre-existing sensory bias has been shown in humans to be a thing where for some reason you're just attracted to certain traits more than others. There's no real advantage to the traits other than just you have this pre-existing bias. So kind of interesting. But anyway, let's talk about this last video. This video is about the bowerbirds' grand performance. One of the very, very interesting examples in male production of these, I guess, specific things that females like to look at. So here's the male bowerbird, and what he does, if we can get to it, is he builds these little nest-like structures. And here's the female. You can see much drabber, not obviously beautiful red and yellow, but she does have some yellow. And he builds these little nests for her to sit in, while he then does some crazy stuff with his eyes so that she sees him, and does this very nice song and dance that we're about to see. And within that little nest that he builds, he puts colorful items. Like sometimes they'll put like plastic pen caps that are bright blue, and seeds and berries that are blue. It's very, very interesting. They get some things that are kind of attractive looking and a specific color. So you can see she's checking him out, and here he goes into his dance. Let's see if I can.
Now it's time for his grand performance. He waves his wing like a matador's cape. She appears to be transfixed. This is certainly eye-catching.
So very interesting, and basically, unfortunately, what happens to this fellow, and look how he's showing her the blue seed that he's got. That's really cool all around. Unfortunately for this fellow, I think if this ends well, yeah, another male is attracted to the sounds and kind of, messes with him, and then the female runs off, and look how sad he is. All that work, and he's going to have to try another day. So that's unfortunate for him. And with that, guys, I think that's going to end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Like I said, please reach out if you have any questions, and also go back and check out those videos for yourselves on YouTube so you can hear all the narration and whatnot. So, okay, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.